been resolved, you'll just point them out, and if the Senate is also satisfied, we'll mark them as resolved. Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take through the committee on the report of the Auditor General on County Executive of Kirinyaga for the year ended 30th June 2021. The opinion was a qualified opinion, and basis for conclusion. On the basis of conclusion, I start to be guided, Chair, whether I read everything or what we believe as auditors that has been resolved. Thank you.
I think now that we have the full County Assembly Committee here, it would be useful for us to start in the traditional manner, and then along the way we will freestyle a little bit. So in that case, read your finding, the Governor shall respond, the Senators shall interrogate, and then we shall render our position.
Thank you, Chair. Basis for qualified opinion number 1 was on variance between financial statements and the computed amounts in basic wages for temporary employees. And I read, as disclosed in note 11 to the financial statements, the statements of receipts and payments reflects Kenya shillings 2,245,298,522 in respect to compensation of employees. Included in this balance is Kenya shillings 83,080,125 relating to basic wages for temporary employees. However, a recomputation of the manual payrolls data revealed an amount of Kenya shillings 82,051,008 shillings, resulting to an unexplained variance of Kenya shillings 1,029,117. In the circumstance, the accuracy of the basic wages for temporary employees of Kenya shillings 83,080,125 could not be confirmed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Governor, as is our practice, you will read your management response.
Thank you, Chair. The identified variance of Kenya shillings 1,029,117 relates to an amount of Kenya shillings 182,962 and 40 cents for pay as you earn, and another amount of Kenya shillings 846,154 and 60 cents paid to Bingwa Sacco Limited for salaries that were posted under the casual sub-item vote during the period under review as evidenced by the attached payment slips. See Annex 1, financial statement, payment details for casual wages and reconciliation thereof.
Auditor General, I can see Annex 1 is a very thick document which includes the financial statements. So which part of that Annex 1 resolves the query?
The last page, yeah.
To the last page, just refer us to that.
I can't read this one.
First of all, in your view, in your opinion, the matter has been resolved?
Chair, the issue has been resolved.
Okay.
Yes.
So you agree with the county's narration?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Because we are using the report of the Office of the Auditor General, and I think this goes even to the County Assembly. In this kind of proceedings, it is the Auditor General that made the findings. And for us as a Senate to agree that a matter has been resolved, it needs to be to the satisfaction of the Office of the Auditor General and the satisfaction of the Senate. So please take note of that, that office is constitutionally established, and when they tell you they are not satisfied, it will be very difficult for you as politicians to be satisfied when the Auditor General is not. But when they tell you they are satisfied, it will also be very difficult for you to be dissatisfied when they are satisfied. That's the kind of relationship we have with the Office of the Auditor General. They are the experts, and we take it once they have verified a matter, that matter has been dealt with properly. So issue number 1, we can mark it as resolved. We go to number 2, inaccuracies in fuel, oil, and lubricants.
Thank you, Chair. Inaccuracies in fuel, oil, and lubricants As disclosed in note 12 to the financial statements, the statement of receipts and payments reflects Kenya shillings 1,057,783,731 in respect of use of goods and services. Included in this balance is Kenya shillings 68,458,530 for fuel, oil, and lubricants. It was observed that the supplier fuel statements for the period 1st July 2020 to 30th June 2021 reflect consumption of Kenya shillings 33,399,144. However, the corresponding fuel consumption records at the county's Department of Transport indicate Kenya shillings 28,492,392, resulting to an unexplained variance of Kenya shillings 6,111,409. Further, fuel payments made to supplier through internet banking amounted to Kenya shillings 34,603,802, differing with the fuel statement amount of Kenya shillings 33,399,144 by Kenya shillings 1,204,658. No explanation for the variance was provided. Consequently, the accuracy of expenditure on fuel, oil, and lubricants of Kenya shillings 68,458,530 could not be confirmed. Thank you, Chair.
Governor, your response?
Chair, in response to the first observation by the auditor on the unexplained variance of 6,111,409.92 between the fuel consumption records at the Department of Transport and the National Oil Corporation fuel account statement, the county wishes to clarify that this amount represents unupdated fuel records at the Department of Transport at the period of review. The records were subsequently updated by the entity as evidenced by the attached fuel register and work tickets. See Annex 2A, updated fuel register, and copies of work tickets highlighting fuel expenditure of 6,111,409.92. On the second observation by the auditor in respect to the variance of Kenya shillings 1,204,658, the county wishes to clarify that this amount represented payments made by the county government to National Oil Corporation, which had not been credited to a fuel account statement as at 30th June 2021. The credit into the fuel statement was subsequently effected on the provision of the RTGS transaction slips to the National Oil. See also Annex 2B, updated fuel statement highlighting the credited amounts.
Auditor General, there are two issues that you queried, 6.1 million and 1.2 million, where no explanation was provided. Can you confirm that the annexures 2A and 2B before us address those amounts?
Thank you, Chair. I want to confirm to the committee that the two annexures confirm the verification that we did, and they are in agreement with our observation. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
What sense do we make of this annexure? It has no header, it has no footer, it has no stamp. This could have been collected from a butchery. So how were you satisfied with this annexure? Governor, this is your document, Annex 2A. What is, are you looking at Annex 2A? What's the story in Annex 2A?
Chairman, these are the work tickets. That's why you see them handwritten and they are photocopied. So you can't add a header on them because that's the way the work ticket appears. However, on the first page, we have written that they are the Annex 2A updated fuel. So it's the actual work tickets as evidence that the drivers drove and they consumed the fuel.
Is there,
and they are also certified
is there any date on this particular document?
Yes, they are actually stamped. If you look, there is a stamp. If you turn them.
Where? Let's just start from the very first page on after Annex 2A. So you've got some about 10, 20 pages that have been stapled.
Yes, then where
Now,
they are stapled, you'll see a stamp, Chair.
I don't see a stamp. There's one here that has 76 on top. I don't know what that 76 means. Is that a page number?
Chair, it's filed the other way around. If you hold the entire stapled document, you'll see a stamp. So they should have actually stapled punched the other side. And it's dated 7.
Yeah, because if you are looking at it logically, it does not make sense at all. Now, some entries relate to which year are we dealing with? Which financial year?
2021, Chair.
But I'm seeing entries relating to July
2020.
We're
It
dealing
starts
with
from
the
1st
financial
July
year ending 30th June
2021. It's starting
page
now
2,
from 1st July 2020, running up to 30th June 2021.
Yes, on page 2, I see work tickets relating to 2nd of July 2021 and 3rd of July 2021. The next page, 6th of July 2021, 8th of July 2021, 15th of July 2021. So how does this address the query in that financial year?
The four, we are on cash basis. The four had been earlier on drawn, though the payment was done later, Chair.
Okay, even though I would have expected that explanation from the county, because these are your records.
I was going to say the same, that the fuel was paid after.
So, Auditor General, you are satisfied that this addresses a 6 million difference?
Yes, Chair.
The 1.2 million difference?
The documents, the work tickets that we have also address the 1 million.
And which ones are they? Because there's a reason why these documents have been brought to the Senate.
Chair, if I may, all these work tickets address the same question.
No, they are two separate items. So for us, we must be satisfied that each amount queried has been addressed. The 6.1 million, 1.2 million. 2A, you said addresses 6.1 million. And you said there's a 2B that addresses the 1.2 million.
Sorry.
I think let the governor address that.
Chair, there is 2B, which is looks like this. I don't know, it's on landscape and stamped July 2021. You'll find all the signatures of the other work tickets.
I thought the landscape was a 2A.
There's 2A is portrait, the one that is filed wrong, is filed the other way around. And then next to it, there is this document.
So let me understand what you're talking about. The fuel had been drawn and, because I'm querying why we have entries of 21st of July. Just repeat again that explanation.
I'll ask the CC to explain to you about the end
please.
of the financial year.
Because my mind must be very clear that this, whatever we've submitted applies to the financial year in question.
Thank you, Chair. The explanation is that during at the time of audit, this fuel was already paid, but it was not posted in our cards by National Oil. As a result, it was not consumed during that particular financial year, but the payments have already been done and credited to National Oil. So when the team came, they could not check the consumption records to certify that that fuel has already been consumed. That is why we are attaching the consumption for the next year's period to show how that particular 1.1 million fuel was consumed.
You say it was drawn?
Yes.
But not consumed?
Yes.
What is drawing?
It is paying to the supplier. The supplier has already been paid, but he has not credited the same fuel in our fuel cards. So we have not consumed it during that particular financial
So in
year.
cash basis accounting, how do you account for that in the subsequent year or in the prior year? Because consumption is in a different financial year. Payment is in a different financial year.
This is an arrangement called the bond voyage arrangement with NOC and Total Kenya. But for their case is no. What you are supposed to do is that you do a deposit in advance. And this is now the deposit now we are asking. Then from that deposit, now you continue drawing. Therefore, what the client had not provided is an evidence on what the deposit had been placed with the company, which was again provided in a subsequent period, Chair.
Governor, what was the difficulty in providing the documentation at the time of audit? Because listening to the Auditor General, then this matter should not have come to the Senate.
Chair, we apologize that that information was not availed as at that time, but we have moved swiftly to rectify that situation and it won't happen again, Chair.
I want us to, unless Senator Dulo, you've got a query, but we would have looked at issue number 3, then we come back to that question that I've asked, because we must understand the context we were operating in during that period. Issue number 1, if you are able to satisfy the Senate now, you could have satisfied the Auditor General at the time of audit. Same case with issue number 2. Senator Dulo, if you go to issue number 3, perhaps you will be able to see that there was some laziness on the part of the county executive in that year. Do you want to intervene now?
You want us to proceed to 3 first?
Unless you have a specific question on this.
Just wondering, how can you pay for what you have not consumed? Is that allowed by law in Kenya? Because you know, if I have not consumed, I'm just paying deposit in advance. Is that accounting allowed?
Governor?
For the consumption of fuel, the petrol stations will not allow you to draw fuel and pay later. And we don't give drivers cash. So what you do is you have an account where you credit the account and then they consume when it gets finished, again, because they cite the problems of paying bills and sometimes
but I think personally, Chair, there could be a danger there. What if it's not consumed? So maybe auditors, what is your position?
And in fact,
may I
what
respond before the auditor?
Just to add on to what Senator Dula has asked, what if it is consumed by private vehicles and not county vehicles? That's the other risk.
That's what I wanted to respond. The account is for Kirinyaga County and there are specific cards given to specific drivers who can fuel and then it goes into their work ticket. And you can't do that as an external because that account is specifically for Kirinyaga County. So the drivers have fuel cards, which they use. And even if the fuel is left, it's still a credit to the county for it to be consumed. The second thing, Chair, I want to just mention, you need maybe to understand why it ended up not being there. They took the documents up to June 30th. And those are the ones that raised the queries. So they provided the documents of the consumption of the fuel that was still with the NOC, the National Oil Corporation, after they had consumed between July and the time now when we are coming to finalizing the audit. But that is normal because if we don't receive money on July 1st, for example, to run the county from July 1st. So whatever it is that you had left over is what you continue, especially in fuel consumption.
Okay, I think, Senator Dulo, your concerns are valid because it must have been in, was it Samburu or Marsabit? One of the counties we visited, Samburu, where the then governor had an active matter regarding fuel. ESCC? Is that Samburu? I think Lenol Kulan.
Yes, it is, Chair.
Okay. So we, Auditor General, please keep an eye on it, on this particular expenditure line. And I think there's something slightly out of order in this.
I just want to explain a bit about this, because this is a system we are also using as an office. And I know how it works. You place a deposit, Then once you place a deposit, there is an agreement between the two entities. Then you restate the vehicles, which will also be drawing for their registration numbers and a limit for every vehicle. Therefore, when a vehicle is now drawing for, if it's 10,000, it will be reduced from that limit of 10,000 and a receipt is issued on spot. Therefore, you cannot draw for another vehicle. It is for that specific vehicle. The driver must also sign as the authority, and there must be a supervisor who is also doing daily reconciliations.
So if it is that clear, why did you query it?
It is because they had not provided us that evidence on how it had worked.
Okay, let's proceed to issue number 3 on unsupported expenditure. Number 1, number 2 have all been about unsupported expenditure. Number 3 is also on unsupported expenditure. Auditor General, your finding?
Thank you, Chair. Unsupported expenditure. The statement of receipts and payments reflects total payments of Kenya shillings 5,502,822,503. Included in this balance is a total expenditure of 61,808,658, whose payment vouchers and supported documents were not provided for audit as summarized below. We have use of goods and services totaling 3.4 million. We have acquisition of assets, 7.8 million. We have another acquisition of assets at the waterworks, which is 50 million, totaling 61.8 million. In the circumstance, the validity of the above expenditures amounting to Kenya shillings 61,808,658 could not be confirmed. Thank you.
Governor, your response?
The county wishes to clarify that the relevant payment vouchers and supporting documents to the above mentioned observations were availed for audit during the period under review. However, the county hereby submits the payment vouchers and supporting documents for your review. Annex 3, breakdown of expenditure amounting to 61,808,658. Annex 3A, copies of payment vouchers for fuel. Annex 3B, copies of payment vouchers and supporting documents for office furniture and institutional payment. And Annex 3C, copies of payment vouchers and supporting documents for waterworks. I think I should mention at this point, Chairman, that this for acquisition of asset waterworks, the original documents are the ones they could not get at the time. That's why they were listed as not being there, because they had been picked by EACC. The original documents were with EACC, so they eventually used the copies, certified copies. I submit, Chair.
EACC, Kinoti, were you holding these records?
Chairman, I can confirm. Give me some time to confirm. I'm not very sure about this specific document, unless the county is able to prove using either a letter of request or an inventory that took the documents.
Yeah, Governor, he who alleges must prove. What evidence do you have that EACC was in custody of these records?
We have the letters in the office. We can submit them. However, the copies are here and submitted.
That notwithstanding, Auditor General, have you looked at that schedule and the supporting documents?
Thank you, Chair. We have looked at the schedule and the supporting document, and the issue is now considered addressed.
I wanted us to pick 1, 2, and 3, and then just take a view. This is a kind of audit report that Senator Mtata usually describes as one that does not challenge our thinking capacity, because we are dealing with provision of records, which should not end up at the Senate. So, beyond the apology that the CEC Finance is tendering, what was the problem in Kirinyaga in this financial year? Because Section 62 of the Public Audit Act criminalizes non-provision of documents to the Office of the Auditor General. Auditor General, could you just tell us what Section 62 says? Because we need to satisfy ourselves that this was not intentional. If it was intentional, we refer to Section 62.
Thank you, Chair. Section 62 of the Public Audit Act 2015. Section 1 says without justification, the auditors are not provided with the information and explanations during the audit. Still 62.2 received that if provision of these documents are not done, there is a fine, Chair, of 5 million, or 3 years, or both in jail.
So the law says without justification. So is there any justification, Governor, why these documents were not provided?
Chair, from what I'm told, they were provided, but they still appeared in the management letters.
And when they appear in the management letter, Auditor General, what latitude, how much time are you giving the county to make good the findings?
Thank you. Once we start the audit, we do an entry meeting, Chair. Then at the entry meeting, we reflect on our expectations. Then as we continue with the audit, we are still engaging. Then once we are through with the audit, before we leave the client, we carry out an exit meeting. And at the exit meeting, we also reflect on all the issues which have come out of the audit. Then once we are through with that, we do a management letter, which is addressed to the management, and we give them 10 days to respond to the management letter.
So, Governor, there was a 10-day period after the issuance of the management letter for you to respond. Was there any response?
Yes, from what I am told, they responded.
Is that on record? Do you have evidence? Auditor General, the executive says they responded to your management letter and no action was taken.
Thank you, Chair. Once the management letter has been addressed and the Auditor General, in our own opinion, feels that the matters are not adequately addressed, they are raised in a draft certificate. And again, after draft certificate, we give additional 7 days. Then once they are not addressed at the draft certificate, they are now included in the final certificate. And this issue is arising in the final certificate because the issues were not adequately addressed at that period. Thank you, Chair.
Could you tell us the status of the current audit? Have you done your entry? Have you done your exit?
Thank you, Chair. We have done the entry, we have done the exit, and we have raised the management letter, and we expect the responses to the same in the course of this week. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I think, Governor, our frustration is the things we are dealing with really are not worth the time of the Senate, where we are asking for records of fuel vouchers. That exercise should be at the county assembly level. This Senate wants to discuss policy issues and statutory constraints to devolution. So please, let's deal with these basic things. It does not mean that the audit report must have issues. You can have an unqualified opinion. Then you come here, we discuss issues of lawfulness, effectiveness, value for money, controls, and internal systems. I think it's very frustrating when the Senate is now counting the fuel vouchers and trying to look at vehicles which we have no visibility over. Please, let's take this audit exercise seriously. Then our interaction with the Senate will be much more pleasant than this business of trying to count how many vehicles fueled and on which date. So, County Assembly, if I wish you guys can just pull it up a little bit so that these things of counting how many vehicles fueled, you do it at your level, then we can deal with the policy issues. So that explains number 3.0. Auditor General, the 61 million, you can confirm it has been explained satisfactorily?
Yes, Chair.
Senator Cherargei, please go on record.
Morning, Cherargei Kiprotich is my name, Senator Nandi County. Oh, sorry, thank you, my senior Senator Dulo. Good afternoon. Cherargei Kiprotich is my name, Senator Nandi County, and the Vice Chairperson of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, Senator.
My apologies for coming late. Was held up in the Committee of Trade over other issues of KNTC. Thank you.
Very good. Now to proceed and to demonstrate our frustration, is that the next issue on unsupported acquisition of assets, where 2.6 million was queried, the Auditor General reports to us that that justification has now been provided. When we go to issue number 5, on irregularities and unsupported specialized material and services expenditure, the Auditor General again reports to us that the 17.0 million that was queried has now been supported. And on issue number 6, which is a bookkeeping issue, again, the Auditor General reports that it has been resolved. So, Governor, you can save your time and the time of the Senate by making sure that there is some diligence at the time of audit. Because if I was to go through the traditional procedure, I would be asking you to read, you respond, we query, only to reach at that conclusion that the matter has been supported. And yet that could have been done at the time of audit. So number 4, number 5, and number 6, the Auditor General has explained to us that now the supporting documents have been provided. Let's go to issue number 7 on undisclosure of pending staff payables.
Thank you, Chair. As disclosed in Note 7.10.2 on other important disclosures, is the nil pending staff payable balance. However, records available indicate that the county government owes LAPFAD a total of Kenya shillings 36,983,665, being principal debt of Kenya shillings 3,809,834, and accrued interest of Kenya shillings 33,173,834 for the period April 2013 to 15th May 2021. The amount has not been listed as pending staffs payable. In the circumstances, the pending staffs payable of Kenya shillings 36,983,665 is not fairly presented in the financial statements. Thank you.
Governor, your response?
Chair, the county wishes to clarify that the amount of 36,983,665 due to LAP fund was disclosed as a contingent liability and not as a pending staff payable, as evidenced by the extract of the FS referred to financial statement, Annex 1, page 51, on disclosure of contingent liabilities. Further, the county clarifies that through engagement between LAP Fund and the county, an agreement was reached for the county to first settle the amount of Kenya shillings 3,762,692.45 being principal debt. This amount was subsequently settled on 11th July 2023. See Annex 7, bank copy of the RTGS. Further, it was agreed that LAP Fund was to explore with their board of directors on the issue of waiving the interest and penalties amount therein. I submit, Chair.
Auditor General.
Thank you, Chair. What is outstanding is the penalties and interest. We consider that the issue has not been addressed, Chair.
Auditor, just be very specific. The treatment of that figure as a contingent liability, is that the right accounting practice?
Thank you, Chair. We consider the treatment ought to be the correct one because there is a stipulation in the template for the disclosure of the outstanding staff payables and as a pending bill.
So can you be clear, CP Ndumu? Yes. The governor says that the 36 was captured as a contingent liability. I can see it there. Was that the right accounting treatment? Yes or no?
Chair, no.
Governor, the auditor says that that amount ought not to have been classified as a contingent liability, And I think on page 23, you've got your significant accounting policies where contingent liabilities are described. Because a contingent liability is all about expenses that are uncertain, whose exact amount is uncertain, or whose possibility is uncertain due to certain things that are still in progress, like litigation. But where LAP Fund has already sent you a demand note, should that be a contingent liability, or it should be captured as an account payable?
It is account payable because there is certainty of the amount here.
Despite the mediation or despite the waiver request that...
Yes, because that amount of 33 is already known.
Okay, Governor?
Chair, I think from what I am advised, this bill was accrued in the first term, Governor, between 2013, 2017, and we've not agreed with LAP Fund what we owe them. That's why we are insisting.
No, but you've already been billed by, there's a note, there's a demand note by LAP Fund, so it cannot be contingent. I think let's agree on the accounting treatment, okay. Then we go to the substantive issue. Who's the CPA in your team?
I am, Chair.
Were you involved in preparation of these financial statements?
No.
Who are the signatories to these financial statements? Joshua Waweru Ndege? Is Joshua Waweru Ndege here?
The team here was not the team in 2020.
Zephania Ndongo Kiongo.
Yeah.
That's my old-time friend. You were with us last time. So Zephania Ndongo is ISPAC member number 9398. Why did you put that amount as a contingent liability?
As we have said, my chairman, this issue of RAPTAF had not been agreed by both the county and the RAP Fund. And don't believe my chairman. If somebody have bring a fault, you shall say that now you have agreed to pay. And that's why you are trying to negotiate, and so you are still negotiating.
Where is the evidence that you have sought a waiver in the records before us?
My chairman, I cannot say the evidence there, but my head of the treasury have just explained that we agreed and we have paid the initial amount. What we have not agreed upon and what we are treating as a contingent is only the penalty and the interest.
Where is the evidence that will bring the Senate to that position? Because if you've sought a waiver, it must be by way of writing. If there are some discussions, it must be on record. We don't have anything before us.
Chairman, I think the CC can respond on that issue of the records.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that we have done that in writing. We have negotiations in our own boardroom meetings. We have even the minutes.
Where is it before the Senate?
I am seeking the chair to allow me to submit. I can do that even within a day because the records are there in our office here.
Yeah, because without that being on record, then I would disagree with the distinguished CPA. Okay. Without us having that before us. But even if the matter was subject to those discussions, unless there was litigation, is there litigation, or it's more of a discussion between the two parties?
There is no litigation as of now. It's just been a dispute between us.
Now that we don't have that evidence of your intervention, please provide that to the Office of the Auditor General so that they can advise us whether this was treated properly. So,
yeah, I just want to know whether that will resolve the issues of the query.
No, it doesn't. I was actually going to because that was bookkeeping. That was about accounting policies. Now, we come back to a principal of 3 million, which has given birth to interest and penalties of 33 million. I think that's the issue. That's the issue. It's not even the contingent liabilities or the accounting treatments. Governor, how did this happen, that 3 million grew to 33 million?
Chair, during the negotiations that you have asked us to provide evidence of the same, we noticed that the interest rates are compounded. Same case to the penalties, whereby every other month, whatever has been generated from the principal is compounded and translate to the new figure or new demand. So the issue is the amount of charging the penalties and interest rates. Thank you.
Assuming you earn a salary of 100,000 for illustration purposes, you have requested the control of budget to approve your salary of 100,000. Then you have to break it down into statutory deductions, insurance, all those things, including lap fund or lap trust. Why would you deduct that money and not remit when the control of budget has already approved that you withdraw 100,000?
Well, Chair, it's our responsibility to submit the deductions or the contributions to the entities. However, I don't know what would have happened. Sorry. Let us see.
No, I was using your 100,000 salary. So why would the part that's supposed to go to lab fund not go to lab fund?
It would be an omission
because the control of budget has already approved, and you have withdrawn 100,000.
Yes.
Why would we withdraw 100,000 and not remit the element that goes to lab trust? Help us understand. You are the guys in the county.
I think, Chair, just to be clear, this happened during the local authorities' time. They are the ones who did not submit the money to LAP Fund. So what we are trying to negotiate with LAP Fund is not to punish us, this current government, for the mistakes of the previous, to the extent of 30 million shillings for something that was worth 3 million. That even if they were to charge us, they should be a bit more lenient. But they are now punishing the current government by compounding a debt of 3 million to come to 33 million. And that is why we have not paid the 33 million. So, and have been considering it as contingent liability. So we've said we are in the process of discussing with them to waive it. We're actually requesting them to waive the penalties and the interest, because the principal amount, which the local authorities did not pay at that time, that we have agreed on. But it's the interest that we find unfair for a government entity, if I can clarify.
You know, we also take judicial notice that you chair the Council of Governors, and the issue of assets and liabilities of defunct authorities are sitting somewhere in some of the committees that you sit in, either at IBEC or at Summit. And you can see now the effect of the delays in settlement of assets and liabilities. Would you tell the Senate from where you sit as chair of COG where the matter has reached?
On the issues of assets and liabilities, the resources were provided to the committee that was supposed to be finalizing, which is coordinated by the Office of the Deputy President, and I believe they are in the process of doing the same. They had given us, in the last IBEC meeting, a period of about 4 to 6 months, but as of now, since we haven't had an IBEC as of now, I can't tell you exactly where they are at, but I know that the process is ongoing to finalize the issue of assets and liabilities so that we can close that issue once and for all.
But as a result, Kirinyaga is now paying, because if you now compound and if you want to work it out, how much money you are paying every day, it's almost 500,000 every day because of that delay. It's quite significant. Yeah? Because that thing of assets and liabilities, we talk about it as if it's an abstract concept, but this is the impact that it has. So are you going to pay before that exercise is concluded?
Chairman, we are hoping not to pay at all.
But you already paid 3 million.
The principal amount. We've agreed on the principal amount, but the interest and penalties, we are negotiating for them to waive it. Because we don't have a budget to pay for penalties that have accrued that really have nothing to do with the current devolved system.
Senator Nyonga, then Senator...
Thank you, Chair. Your Excellency Governor, I wanted, did you come with your legal team? No, because I would have wanted to know what is the legal implication of this amount of interest cascading from where it is and whether the law sets up a caveat so that then it makes sense. Because at this rate, I am completely...
Senator Chirage.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, Governor, is there demonstrable evidence to show your protest against non-payment of the interest? Number two, if this thing goes to court and court rules against you that you must pay the penalties because it's something that you have not resolved, will you, the danger is they might end up auctioning some of your assets to recover their money. So what is the way out? Because if you say we want pay, can't pay, is not the solution. What is it? And that is why, do you have the county attorney? I thought the act as stipulated or county legal team.
Chair, the county attorney is representing us in a meeting elsewhere for the county secretaries, because as you've heard, we don't have a county secretary at this point in time, and that's why she was not able to be here. However, in the event, the unfortunate event that the court rules against us, I guess we would have no recourse but to pay, but we would also like to show that we've made effort to reduce the amount that the county government end up paying in terms of interest. We are hopeful that we will come into an agreement, even if it's not completely write-off, at least reduce from that 33 to something a little bit more reasonable. And in the event that that happens, then we should be able to include that in the pending bills.
Yeah, can I say something in conclusion?
Yes.
Governor, I think the reason we are raising is that the office of the county attorney should have given you proper legal advice. But in my opinion, you might use a lot of resources and time in court. Why don't you do out-of-court settlement as part of resolving the issue? Is the LAP fund and other stakeholders interested in your meeting resolving this issue? So that you don't end up staying in court. You know, you as lawyers, we are very smart. We'll take much money until by the time you compare what you should have paid and what you have paid as legal fees, you have paid more to legal fees in terms. Is there a way you can, I'm not holding brief for anybody, but is there a way you can properly resolve so that we don't need to have this audit query over the year? Thank you, Chair. That was my advice.
I think we need to be very clear. Is this matter in court or it's still you're still trying to, and I think that's what we are calling the demonstrable evidence that that you have sought a waiver. Can you provide that to the Auditor General within the next 7
Chair,
days?
in addition,
Senator Dulo.
yes, on the matter of interest and penalty, it's payable, but it's something that you can negotiate to reduce the amount. But my concern is, was there any response from them to show their position as far as you are concerned on that matter? Because if you have written to them, there must be a response for them willing to come down or not.
Governor?
The matter is not in court, to clarify Senator Chirag's question. And on the question as to whether there's any indication, yes, we've had meetings. The meetings are in our offices, in our boardroom. We have the records. What they have said is that they will table our proposal to waive the interest and penalties to their board, and then they will get back to us. So we are waiting for them to get back to us on what their board has decided. In the meantime, we will provide the evidence of the meetings to the Auditor General as requested by Chair.
Yeah, because it's not a small amount of money. I'm just looking at your own source revenue report. You're collecting 23 million on vehicle parking fees. So if you had to pay this amount, it means that all the money you get from parking will be going to those pension funds. And the question we must ask ourselves is whether this is an avoidable interest. If it is avoidable, and Auditor General, we also help us to be clear that this relates to the defunct authorities. Because if it relates to the time when the governor is in office, then we will be looking at it as avoidable. And if it is avoidable, then we shall hold the governor and her team to account. Yeah. I hope, Governor, we're on the same page. If it is during your tenure, then would be, the question I was asking your officer would be valid, where you requisition 100,000, get it, and you do not remit it onwards. That would be avoidable. That would be an example of a charge that is avoidable. And that one, we must hold you to account. If it relates to the defunct local authorities, it's a different conversation altogether, but you must still take measures to prevent wastage of public funds. Auditor, can you keep this in view?
We can keep in view, and I can confirm that these are carryover audits because it happened in 2013, Chair.
Okay. I think if that is the case, then let's keep it in view, but you must provide that evidence that you have alluded to so that when you're writing our report, we are able to make the right conclusion. Senator Sifuna, please go on record.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I've been running up and down all day. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edwin Sifuna, Senator for Nairobi and a member of this committee.
Karibu, Senator. We move then to issue number 8. Even though issue number 7, earlier on we had asked Treasury, or was it EACC, the induplam principle, whether it applies to this, and what was your position?
Chair, the position is that I think there is a law under the RBA, Retirement Benefit Authority, that exempts pension specifically from that, because they charge the interest, the penalty, and what they call actuarial deficit.
Yeah, and so it is mathematically proven. So if it is mathematically proven, what are you appealing? If the maths add up to 36 million.
We are appealing because, as you said, rightfully said, we are financially constrained. And whereas if we were a wealthier county, we would be willing to pay, 33 million is a lot of money for Kirinyaga County.
So your argument is just huruma?
No, it's to appeal to reduce it, also considering that their liability wasn't incurred during our tenure.
Well, remember that LAP Fund also has obligations to its members. Okay. And it has got, is it a defined contribution or a defined benefit scheme nowadays? Whatever architecture it has, it also has an obligation to its members. And so the Senate will not declare that Kirinyaga should not pay that amount. You must then work it out and come to an amicable position. We were a bit alarmed how 3 million becomes 36 million, but EACC has clarified that there's an exemption to pension funds. So I think OAG and the accountants, you need to agree whether this is a contingent liability. I'm beginning to think that it might sound like one. But let's move to number 8. Inaccuracies in the fixed asset register. Auditor General, you have reported that this has now been updated.
Yes, except for defunct assets whose value have not been fully incorporated.
Okay, but that goes back to the question I'd put to the governor, the assets and liabilities of defunct local authorities.
Chair.
I think, Governor, we must bring this thing to a closure. I chaired the devolution committee. The matter came before me. You now chair the Council of Governors. The matter is before you. We don't seem to have a plan to close this thing.
Chair, the relevant committees headed by the National Treasury and with the support of counties tabled at the IBEC a plan and a budget to close this matter. And that's what I said, it is ongoing. They were provided for with the budget. The budget wasn't as exactly what they wanted, but they were given sufficient resources which enabled them to do the work. And we're anticipating that they will have closed this matter for all counties as soon as possible. Actually, by now it should have been finished.
What timelines were we working with? Because if someone asks for resources, then they must also give timelines.
They had said about 6 months.
From?
July 1st, from the beginning of the financial year.
So that report should be due early
December,
in
January.
the third quarter, the third quarter of the financial year.
Yes, it all went as planned.
Fine.
Maybe
So
the
so
National
so we'll
Treasury.
partner with the devolution committee on this because we need to bring this matter to a close. Senator Cherage, before we move to the other.
Governor, what about the valuation role? Is this, and then number two, the fact that you cannot give value to your assets, does it not affect your revenue streams? Because when you don't know what you have, if you knew what you have, it would have given you to increase on revenue streams. And what is the status of the valuation role? Thank you, Chair.
Governor?
Chair, every county has their own register, the assets and liabilities register. This was a validation exercise to make sure that it's actually accurate, because some assets may be, some counties may either put the value higher than it should be and vice versa, or lower than it should be. So the team that is being coordinated under the IBEC is to actually validate, and so to have that matter closed. So if at any one point the counties need to use their asset registers, all counties have their own asset registers, only they need to be validated to make sure that we're not losing any assets.
So in your county, through you, Chair, there is no valuation role because the asset register is incomplete because of the function.
Have you done your evaluation role, Governor?
Yes, we have our assets and liabilities register, and we have a valuation role.
But it
has not been validated by the National Government Committee.
But I thought, Governor, which answer should we take? Because you have said you do not have complete fixed asset register. I have got you right. So how can you have a valuation role when you don't have a complete fixed asset register? Because you are saying your assets in defunct has not been captured.
You see, the part of the assets that were being validated by this committee includes the assets of the defunct local authorities. Those are the ones that we're not certain about. So they have to come and validate that. But other than that, all the other assets and liabilities, we have them in our register.
So through you, Chair, so in conclusion, it means that you do not have complete fixed asset register, since you don't know everything about Kirinyaga County, including that was there in defunct municipal councils that were there.
Yes, and that applies to all counties.
No, there are counties who have complete.
It's not possible.
Yeah, so
but not validated.
And then number two, it means you do not have valuation role that is complete, because you cannot count the number of eggs you have if you are not sure where they are. So what is the demonstrable evidence in conclusion, just through you, Chair? So have you allocated a budget for completion of the process? What is you are waiting for the national government through the intergovernmental mechanisms to validate? Is that the position?
Yes, we're waiting for the national government to validate, because some of those assets are still being held at the national level and have not been transferred to counties. So until that process is complete, no county can claim to have a completed.
Well, maybe finally, Chair, now, Governor, you are leading me to another question. When the transitional authority, I know you are not there and then, but there in the last, of course, he was here then, but you are not the governor of Kirinyaga. In the handing over notes of transitional authority, was it indicated that there are some assets that belong to Kirinyaga County specifically that had not been transferred by the national government? Like I remember in the last session, there was a fight over establishment of some national issue, and the issue was with land and what have you. Was it captured?
Yes, it's captured in the report.
Okay. So I think we give a view on that.
Yeah, I think, Governor, you have a good view of this exercise, because you are on the other side tormenting governors. Now you're on this other side defending governors. And you have a very good view of the history here. And I think I also have a fairly good view, because I've chaired this committee, chaired the Devolution Committee, and chaired this committee again. The county assets and liability verification committees were gazetted. And I think they were gazetted when you were already governor. I don't know whether you're the one who gazetted them as CS. It was a county assets and liability verification committees that were supposed to come up with an inventory of assets and liabilities for each county government using a bottom-up approach, because the people at the county are the ones who are best placed to identify the assets and liabilities or that came from defunct local authorities. We are surprised that now we have asked the national government to validate the work that was done by the county governments. These are the small things that allow the national government to micromanage counties. Because if that calc report for Kirinyaga, it came out when you are governor, why would someone somewhere else be validating the work that you've done at the county level? And the county asset and liability verification committees were so representative. There were people from your county executive, from the National Lands Commission, from the Office of Auditor General. It was a very broadly representative committee. What is this other budget again for validation? And what is the capacity of this other entity to validate across the 47 counties?
Chairman, if I may, when Transition Authority completed their work, finished their term, they had not completed this exercise. Then it was taken over by the counties. But then there's always assets that the committees at the county level claim they should have, which have not been transferred by the national government. And the national government needs to confirm that they have those assets to transfer them to the county. So we can be saying that, for example, even until now, there are some vehicles we claim that should have been given to the counties. I think they're grounded somewhere by now. We've even we have complained that they could even by now have, is it expired?
Definitely. 10 years down the line, they're not serviceable.
Yes. So, but we cannot dispose of them because they are not listed as our assets. And so the national government needs to list them as our assets. And for them to list, they said they have to do the validation. So that is where we are.
But why can't you just...
And it applies also to land sometimes, and houses.
And I know this conversation ought to be before the devolution committee, but to be practical, why don't we define the things that we agree on and transfer them? And then we remain with the 20% where there's disagreement. Yes. And I know it must be things to do with pensions. Yes. It must be things to do with maybe land and houses. But the rest of the things, why should we be squabbling over vehicles that you cannot even locate now? So I think we need to be efficient, and maybe we'll be referring the devolution committee to do a meeting with the COG. When I was in devolution committee, I think I was once invited for an IBEC meeting. We also need to build some synergies between the Senate and those other institutions. This matter has gone on for too long, and it needs to be brought to a close. Senator Chirake, your last point, and then the governor. Then
I expected the governor, maybe before you close that matter, when TA left, and it is good you have insight of the story or foresight of what happened, I thought IGTRC took over the work that was done by Transitional Authority. My just quick question would be, this matters has been for the last 10 years, 15 years. When you sit in IBEC and you have advantage of being the chair council of governors, what can you tell us when we are writing this report and through the chair, how long will it take? Because if we have taken 10 years to reach where we are, if we are not careful, we might take another 10 years before we conclude on this matter. And some of these assets are rotting away. Some of them would have given value for our people. You see now with the issue of industrial parks, the setup of affordable housing, we might risk running into a lot of legal hurdles. So my direct question, as the chair of COG, and also you sit in IBEC and you have your own summit, how long do you think, is it first quarter or next financial year, is it 6 months, is it 1 year, to put these matters in Kirinyaga County so that you have full and complete register, so that when you do valuation report and develop of your revenue streams, it becomes easy. So what can you tell us, so that, because when we table this report through the chair, our colleagues at plenary might ask us, you cannot leave an open-ended about the assets in Kirinyaga. So how long should we, before the chair maybe gives his final rule? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and again, Governor, I think these are the kind of conversations we need to be having more of, rather than counting fuel vouchers. Yeah, so you may respond.
Thank you, Chair. On the matter of the assets, I think the time that we expect, if they finished by December, we expect then they should table it in the next IBEC meeting, which is in the third quarter, I mean June, January and March, and hopefully we'll have closed that matter. And then we can remove it from our audit reports. That is for us, but I agree with you that maybe the Senate committee needs to pick up that issue. The Senate Committee on Devolution is the one responsible on the issue of the assets and liabilities, and also on the remaining functions that have not been transferred to counties.
While this is still going on, Senator Sifuna, you might be pleased to note that the land that belongs to Pumwani Hospital, that is supposed to accommodate doctors, has now been converted to petrol stations, garages, and has been allotted to private individuals. The land that is supposed to host nurses' quarters is now a series of high-rise apartments, and simply because of this thing of delays in transfer. And that's just one example, and it cuts across the entire country. So it's an extremely untidy situation.
Chair, maybe just sorry for I think in your, as you have said, Governor, you need to rally your colleagues to treat this matter as a matter of urgency, the way you have treated the El Nino issue. So that, and in fact, if that Pumwani IRA is through the chair and Senator Sifuna, if we take it from those grabbers, you don't need to destroy the apartments. Let the doctors enjoy and the nurses continue. Even the carriages can be used for maintenance of Pumwani vehicles. We don't need to destroy anything. We just take over, Chair. And I'm happy today at least you have mentioned something to do bottom up. Thank you, Chair. Very great work.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. How I wish the Mavoko houses could have been allocated to the police instead of being broken down. But let's proceed on safer grounds. Under budgetary control and performance, we take note of that. Governor, is this a financial year where you sought this intervention of the Senate when you had a budget impasse in the county? It was this financial year. Okay, I recall I was the chair of the Senate Devolution Committee, and perhaps that could have disrupted. But I hope that some of the recommendations we made from the brief conversation we had have been taken into account, and that you don't have further budget standoffs.
No, Chair, we don't have any budget standoffs.
Okay. And resolve prior year matters. That is why we are here. Let's proceed to the report on lawfulness and effectiveness in use of public resources. I think we are concerned with this particular finding on non-compliance with fiscal responsibility principles. Auditor General, read your finding.
Thank you, Chair. Non-compliance with fiscal responsibility principle, as disclosed in Note 11 to the financial statements, the statement of receipts and payments reflects Kenya shillings 2,245,298,522 in respect of compensation of employees. However, this balance is an equivalent of 43.54% of the county's total revenue of Kenya shillings 5,156,283,075 shillings, contravening Section 25(1)(b) of the Public Finance Management, that is County Government's Regulations 2015, which sets the limit of compensation of employees at 35% of the total revenue. Consequently, the management was in breach of the law. Thank you.
Governor, your response.
Thank you, Chair. The county submits that it inherited a workforce from the former defunct local authorities and national government devolved functions with a bid bill that exceeded the 35% limit. Furthermore, the SRC circulars to increase health workers' allowances and implementation of job evaluation report for Phase 1 salary review for all civil servants compounded this issue during this period under review. Despite the above, the county government undertook not to replace exiting staff who are not critical for service delivery in a bid to lower the wage bill. Moreover, the county also embarked on increasing its own source revenue by automation of revenue collection and management system, increase own source revenue by collection of arrears and penalties, and 3, employment of additional revenue officers and clerks. See Annex 11, SRC Job Evaluation Report on Salary Review of all civil servants, and SRC Circular on Additional Health Workers Allowances. I submit, Chair.
Senator Onyonka.
Governor, we've been going through this issue with various governors who have come to do the audit with us. You share a unique experience that you are governor and you're the chair and you've been running your government for a while. Do you think this percentage of 35 is not attainable? In other words, we have noticed that nearly 90% of the county governments cannot attain this percentage. What would your recommendation be to us as a Senate? Should we increase it to maybe 40%, or what is your general take? I'm very curious to know this.
So you want to intervene first?
Yes, so that she
Okay,
answers both.
fine.
Governor, and it is good, Dr. Monywa, one of your, is it your countermate from Kirinyaga is here with us, from Treasury. Most of your colleagues have always appeared here and say some people in Nairobi sat and decided that this issue of 35%, and then they just throw it on the faces of counties. What is your view on that? Number 2, you are serving your second and final term, unless anything else happens. What can you say about this? What demonstrable evidence can you show since you picked up as the governor of Kirinyaga in 2017 to ensure that you are within the law of 35%? Number 3, there is this notion that governors, including governor of Senator Onyonga, that they normally do HR audit. And it is only counties, it's rarely heard from the national government, it's only counties where you find ghost workers. Ghost workers, I normally see counties saying they have audited, they got ghost workers, others are outside IPPD. In Kirinyaga, these workers, are we talking, number 1, are they all in IPPD? Number 2, what is the total population of workers and you have specifically, do you have both casual or you have only permanent employees? And finally, at some point, because this involves workers, all of them, and finally you had problems with the health workers. Were you able to resolve that issue? Because is it for example, like health workers, I know when you have an issue with health workers, you must hire health workers because it's a profession. You cannot hire anybody else or reallocate assignment. Maybe you cannot say today you allocate as ECD teacher to work in a health center. You must hire that profession. So what is the position of the workers that you have? What is the number? And what is your strategy to ensure you comply with 35% that is already there? Chair, those are my 3 questions.
Okay, Senator Sifuna, do you want to go first? Yes. Then the governor may respond to the 3.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Governor, in your response, you've spoken of an undertaking not to replace exiting staff. My expectation was that the annexures you have here would demonstrate that undertaking. You would show us maybe a memo or something, like any document to demonstrate that undertaking, or is it just an undertaking in word only? And then secondly, I would expect that you would give us a schedule of the people who have left since you made this, or you had this undertaking in the year under review in 21. Are there people who have left, and is there evidence we can see from your annexures here that you have not replaced those people? Those are the 2 concerns I had, Chair.
Thank you. Governor, you may respond to the concerns of the 3 senators.
Thank you, Chair. The first question was on the whether this figure is realistic. I think, in my view, is that it's an ideal figure because of the assessment that has been done by the economic experts of how much you should be spending on recurrent expenditure vis-a-vis development if we're to achieve the overall national outcomes that we desire as a country. So in my view, I think it should remain as a target so that people aspire to get to it. It's very easy not to comply, it's difficult, but I think as a country that we have to strive to aspire for the ideal, which would be, in the ideal sense, we shouldn't be spending more than 30% of our revenue on wages. That, if you look at even businesses, if you are to run a profitable enterprise, if you consider that you will have to have inputs and other costs, you always have to cap your wage bill if you're going to make that enterprise profitable. So in my view, I think in the ideal sense, it's something that we should strive for. However, we have the challenges that we have cited. We inherited bloated institutions, and where the people who are hired may not necessarily be the areas which end up being extremely productive. You will find that you have many officers who are not as productive as they should be if they were in a different environment, let's say in the private sector. So productivity is an issue. Having said that, we are striving to ensure that we reduce the numbers. However, we have the challenges that we have raised. Annually, the salaries are increased, and they're increased by law, and we are not given an option to not increase the salary, and it's for all civil servants. The second thing is that because most of those people who had been hired were permanent and pensionable, you would get into very serious legal hurdles if you tried to release them, as I tried during that health crisis during the year when we had the impasse. And therefore, I think with time, if counties increase their revenue collections so that the amount of money that they're getting in terms of revenue at the local level, you add the increased annual allocation from the Division of Revenue, then you should be able to lower the percentage if they